What is going on, everybody? Thank you for joining us. Sorry for the 1 minute tardiness here, but we are Biscuits and SEC Live. I'm Boss Man. That is Hammer. We are presented, as always, by the Steer Agency, coming to you live for our 68th show, the number one podcast for people who love SEC football and biscuits. Apple charts say that is true. So thank you guys for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Before we get started tonight, as always, sign up here. Morning Biscuits newsletter comes to you on Mondays and on Fridays during the season. After the national championship, we'll go into our off-season mode. That'll come to you on Wednesdays, but free to sign up. So go ahead and sign up for that. Everything that you want to know about what's going on in the SEC, what's going on with SEC football, athletics, and then also college athletics at large. So be sure right now, go ahead and sign up right there. Follow us on all the social media channels per usual. Lots to talk about tonight. Hammer, how we doing?
Doing well. Yeah, we've got plenty to talk about. I guess a bit of a bittersweet show in a way, because the next time we speak to y'all, the season will be officially done. We got a little bit of semifinal to talk about tonight, and then obviously the national title, which will be on Monday. And yeah, come Biscuits and SEC Live time next Wednesday, we will be officially in the dreaded off season. So excited to get into it, but it's kind of sad to wave goodbye to 2025.
Yeah, most certainly. It always goes by fast, and also a bit of a somber show because for the third year in a row, it will not be an SEC national champion, which I hope are we at like the trend point here? I hope it doesn't become a trend, because we are getting clowned by just about everyone for as much trash as we've talked and all the history and all that stuff. The SEC chant is not going to be heard throughout Hard Rock Stadium this year. It's going to either come from the ACC or it's going to come from the Big Ten. So yet another year where the SEC does not get it done.
True.
Unfortunate. Yes. Let's get into it, though. Let's get right into it. It's a little bit, we don't do a show, the shows right after our hot reaction shows or anything. But we can get right into this game. I mean, I don't even know what to say about this game. I could not believe my eyes what I was watching. Indiana absolutely rips Oregon 57-22. This game was over by halftime. Indiana just absolutely steamrolled the Ducks. And the Ducks are a very talented team. I mean, both you and I picked Indiana to win this game, but I did not think it was going to go like this, especially when you think about this game was 30-20 in Eugene during the regular season. I expected a closer game, but Indiana just seems like, I think you tweeted this out, the Blues Brothers, they seem like they're on a mission from God. So yeah. I don't know what else there is to say. I really cannot believe what I'm witnessing with Curt Cignetti and Indiana and just the incredible things that they've done this year. So give me your take on this game. What did you like about it? What did you not? Give me your thoughts.
Yeah, I think well, first of all, I'm just realizing that graphics department today, aka me, has a slight typo. It was 56-22. So
56.
All you Ducks fans out there that are upset that we made it look like you lost worse than you did, let the record show. Correction, 56-22, Indiana. But man, we keep saying the same kind of things week over week about Indiana, and I think we're kind of right back to that. And what I mean by that is what they're doing, especially we've talked about it. Everybody in America has been talking about the talent that Indiana has. And, a lot has been made about how mature their roster is. And there's definitely something to that, right? A 3-star in high school who's now 23, 24 years old, quite possibly is a lot better than, a 5-star who's 18, right? Or 19. So I don't really want to harp on the talent profile of Indiana or where these guys may or may not get drafted. But what I think is fascinating when you watch them is not only do they on paper look like they have less talent than a lot of these teams that they're beating, but the way that they play. So if you go back and let's just think about some recent, recent champions, right? At least out of the SEC, there was 2019 LSU. Those guys were freaks and absolutely dominating teams with athleticism and down the field passing game and, guys coming off the edge. 2020 Alabama, similar, right? Devontae Smith, Najee Harris, like unguardable, can't even come close to matching up with them from a physical standpoint. Last year's Ohio State, 2022 Georgia, right? Like those teams were just physically on another level and they imposed their will. Indiana is imposing their will. Again, not to say they aren't athletic. Of course they are, but they're imposing their will pretty much based on just execution and dominating people in all the margins. So just looking at this game, right? If you look at the box score, I think Oregon actually outgained Indiana slightly. But again, Indiana just executed them to death. Oregon has 3 turnovers, including a pick 6, a fumble that gave Indiana the ball on the 3-yard line, which they promptly punched in, and another fumble that gave Indiana the ball on the 19-yard line, which, of course, they punched in for 7. Not field goals, 7. Indiana went 11 of 14 on third down in this game. We talked about that pregame, that they're the number 1 team on third down. Well, they did it again, right? So they're not, again, not to diminish them, but it's fascinating to see. Like they're not blowing people away in the open field with speed, or they're not, they don't have Devontae Smith who's going to come away with 200 plus yards receiving in the first half of a national title game like Smith did in 2020. But as a team, they just execute the crud out of their opponents. They are never out of position. They know exactly what they're doing. Most of the time, it feels like they know exactly what you are trying to do. And they're just always in the right place at the right time. They're calm, cool, collected. Every phase of the game, special teams, they blocked a punt in the 4th quarter when they were already beating the crap out of Oregon. They block a punt. I mean, they are just relentless. And again, it's such a testament to that coaching staff, the way that they prepare and the mindset they have instilled in this team, because you just can't out execute them, at least not to this point, right? Hey, maybe Miami will, but we're 16 games into this for Indiana. They're 16-0, and they have executed better than every single one of their opponents. And the few times they have been tested against Penn State, against Oregon earlier in the year, and then against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game, when it mattered most, they executed at a high level, right? Maybe those games weren't as perfect as we've seen in this college football playoff run, but it's like they have an answer for everything. They absolutely have an answer for everything. And I mean, Oregon was just totally lost in this game. Like they had nothing, right? I mean, Dante Moore's coming back to school because he played a terrible game. I mean, I'm sure it's not that, and he probably would have gone high had he left, but like he got embarrassed, and that's just because the Indiana defense is so good. I don't know how – I just don't know how else to say it other than they're just absolutely stunning the way that they move the ball down the field. They know exactly what they're doing. When they need Mendoza to make a play, he makes it no problem. He can make all the throws. I mean, he had another game similar to the Alabama stat line where it's like, dude, he threw. So I'll read it out. 17 of 20 for 177 yards and 5 touchdowns. Like they put up 57 points and their quarterback threw the ball 20 times. It's crazy. It's crazy.
But that just speaks to, I mean, that's what I was going to harp on. It's the efficiency, and it's all in the details, right? Like if you look at the box scores after these Indiana games, you can just see they are out executing everyone, and they're dominating people in the margins, right, and in the stat lines. And so, 17 to 20. What I was going to mention, the 5 touchdowns, but what is that? They also had short fields on a lot of those drives. And so that, 177 yards only from, Fernando Mendoza. Well, they had a short field a lot of the time because their defense was absolutely crushing Oregon, and Oregon just couldn't figure anything out. 3 turnovers for Oregon, as you mentioned, 0 turnovers for Indiana. Here's the other part. You want to talk about efficiency? Yards per pass. So only 177 yards, 17 to 20. Yards per pass, 8.9. That is pretty dadgum good, right? Like they're getting chunk plays.
It's amazing.
And it is amazing. And then the other thing too, 4.6 yards per rush. They're getting almost 5 yards a carry. I don't know. I don't exactly remember how good Oregon's defense is. I'm pretty sure they're a top 6 defense in the country.
They are.
And they're getting 8.9 yards per pass and 4.6 yards per carry on the ground. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's unbelievable what they're doing against a defense that is top 6 in the country and coached by Dan Lanning, who's a defensive mastermind, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's just no real word to describe. We've never seen something like this. And I don't even think that's hyperbole. Like, this is not, we've compared them. I've compared them in recent weeks. Cignetti's off the Saban tree. It looks like Cignetti is the next Nick Saban, right? And this looks a lot like the old Alabama teams. If there's any program that looks like that right now, it's Indiana. But what he's doing at Indiana, the losingest program in college football history, is unprecedented. We've never seen it before. It's not hyperbole. What they're doing, there really is no word or comparison to describe it with in college football history.
No, 100%. I mean, a good example of this. So I included this, a shout out to our newsletter, but let me see if I can get this pulled up real quick. I included this in the newsletter, I believe on Friday, where we do the Biscuits and Coffee read of the week, right? So we'll highlight an article that, came across our desk that we enjoyed. So there's a writer from The Ringer, Matt Dollinger, who born and raised in Bloomington, went to Indiana, and of course has gone on to become a writer, right, at The Ringer. So this is a dyed-in-the-wool, lifelong, born and raised Indiana fan. Grew up there, went to school there, and some of the quotes from his piece, if you haven't read it, were really good, and I would encourage you to go seek it out, or if you're a subscriber to the newsletter, just refer back to that one that we sent Friday. Quote, Hoosier fans, and I can't emphasize this enough, used to dream of 6-win seasons, a feat the program has accomplished 26 times in its 138-year existence. Another quote, if you were an Indiana football fan who thought the Hoosiers would eventually turn it around, you weren't an optimist. You were a fool. This was a permanent Groundhog Day of ass kickings. And then his final one, to call this a dream season would be wrong. Indiana fans never dared to dream this big. And it's true. Again, it is one of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen. And I think, again, I'm just in awe of Cignetti and this staff and the players that he has assembled, because, like we've been saying, they are just out executing everybody, and it feels like they're 2 steps ahead of their competition every week, right? You mentioned 8.9 yards a pass, 4.5 yards a carry against a top 10 defense in the college football playoff. Especially, again, we'll see what happens in the draft, but I don't see a Devontae Smith. I don't see a Justin Jefferson and Terrace Marshall and Jamar Chase on this roster. They're very good players, but they are not top-level, top 10 NFL draft pick guys. So they're doing that, without the quote-unquote most talented guys in the sport, and it's because they know exactly what they're doing. They know what you're doing, and they know how to exploit it, and they know their players are going to be in the right position. The quarterback is going to execute it. It's just, they're playing, again, the chess checkers, whatever analogy you want to make, but it's like they're playing chess and they're 2 moves ahead of you. So you make one move and they just take you out. No problem. It's like they don't even blink. They do not blink.
Yeah. I mean, that's right. Like the the last thing I'll say about it is it's the cerebral part of the game, right? Like everybody talks about this, the game is one of the trenches and it's a game of inches and all of that stuff. Well, if you're in Indiana with a lower talent profile, right, than the rest of these other teams, where are you going to find those inches? And how are you going to beat teams that may be more talented than you, be more athletic than you, have more money than you, right? All that stuff that Indiana's getting the money now. They've got plenty of alumni and people are behind the program, but the last 2 years, not necessarily. Yeah. So, but where are you going to find that in the margins? And you're going to find it with what Cignetti has figured out, which is all about discipline. We're going to out execute you and we're going to beat you in the cerebral part of the game. And there's nobody better in the country at the cerebral part of this chess match part of football than Fernando Mendoza at quarterback. The kid he's on point. He doesn't make mistakes. 17-20, extremely efficient, all that stuff to the point where it took him to winning a Heisman. So he couldn't have found a better quarterback to run his offense, to be the leader of this team, knowing that you need someone who is going to be, the cerebral quarterback who's going to play the chess match of the game better than anybody else in the country. And that's why they are where they are. So, All right. Let's go to Ole Miss and Miami. This game was a lot more fun. I mean, my gosh, back and forth whole time. You think Ole Miss is probably going to get it done. They score late, but I said it. I think I texted you this. I said too much time on the clock, ? There was about 3.5 minutes, a little over 3.5 minutes on the clock when Miami got the ball back, and then Miami just methodically, boom, 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 down the field. And eventually, with 18 seconds left, Carson Beck just has a wide open, no spy on him. They clear out the left side across the middle, and there's nobody to the left. And Carson Beck is able to just run it in for a wide open touchdown. And that is pretty much that, except Ole Miss gets 2 plays, goes 40 yards in 2 plays, has a Hail Mary shot. I was yelling it from the rooftops. That was pass interference. I have no clue why refs just swallow the flag during Hail Marys. I mean, that was so obviously pass interference. And I'm not even, look, you can be an ACC guy, Miami guy, whatever. I'm sure Miami fans are like, not PI, whatever. But they're the only people in America, I think, saying that. That was so obviously pass interference. Ole Miss deserved another play, but that's not how the cookie crumbled. Ole Miss ends up losing this one. Miami, the number 10 seed Miami, going to be headed to the college football playoff national title game. But all in all, fun game, really fun game to watch. What were your takeaways from this one?
Yeah, just, again, thankfully, as you brought up, it was such a fun game. So back and forth. And I think, even as SEC homers, Miami was the better team for 60 minutes. And the better teams, don't always win. We see that plenty of times where teams, find a way to win when they maybe don't deserve it or don't have their best. But this game was heavily tilted pretty much the whole time in Miami's favor. Time of possession isn't everything, but I mean, obviously it's not everything because Miami was dominating and was down, 3 points with 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. But it felt like at some point, and give Ole Miss credit because the dam never really did break. It just they sort of just ran out of time here. But I mean, Miami 41 minutes and 22 seconds of time of possession to 18:38 for Ole Miss. The Canes ran 88 plays to Ole Miss's 60. So it was just very heavily, again, kind of the field felt tilted to Miami all night, and give Ole Miss credit for kind of, I feel like we actually kind of nailed both of these game predictions, although Miami ended up covering in the end. But, we talked about in this one, Ole Miss is going to need explosive plays. Well, they got them. They had the 70-plus yard run by Lacey, which was basically the only success they had on the ground. I think if you look at it statistically, they ran 21 times for 121 yards, and 73 of those came on that carry. So down to down, they really struggled to run the ball, which we kind of expected based on Miami's defense, but they still got the explosive. And then in the passing game, they were able to move the ball and had plenty of explosives. Trinidad Chambliss had another really, really good game through the air. But then on the other side, again, Miami was just grinding it out. I mean, they ran the ball 51 times, only for 191 yards. So the yards per carry wasn't great, but my gosh, the body blows that Ole Miss was taking, walking away, and needed an ice bath, because it was a serious just man up. Miami was made it pretty clear what they were trying to do, and again, it worked in the end, right? They wanted to grind them down, and they were doing it. 51 rushing attempts, especially as physical as Fletcher is, and same, I can't remember, Shamar Brown, I think, is the backup, who's pretty physical. Like, that's just tough for a defense to hold up. And then again, we brought this up in the preview, and it came to fruition for Miami. But we said, okay, the two games that Miami had won, Beck was solid, but very much a game manager. We both thought Ole Miss would score more than A&M or Ohio State had, which isn't that hard to do considering what those two teams did against Miami. But that came true, and we knew we needed Beck, or they needed Beck to step up, and man, he did. Again, I put this in the newsletter on Friday, but look, like, dude was clutch. He was so stinking clutch, man. 23 of 37, 268 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, of course, the rushing touchdown. The one interception I don't even really put on him because that was tipped at the line of scrimmage. I mean, you can nitpick and say you shouldn't get your ball tipped at the line of scrimmage, but generally when that happens, I tip my cap to the D-line for doing that, and then it's a total toss-up once it gets tipped. Half the time those balls get intercepted, half the time they flutter to the turf. So it's not like he made a bad decision, let's say, right? He didn't throw into double coverage and just make a stupid play. He just, the defense made a good play on him. So I don't really fault him for that. And then, again, you're talking about clutch. Like, that final drive, he gets the ball, 3 minutes and 13 seconds left, 75 yards to go, and he marches them down there. They have a 3rd and 6 on that drive, 7-yard completion for a first down. Then they have a 3rd and 10 at the 35-yard line, which, again, you're in field goal range. You don't feel great about it. Obviously, that's a long field goal, but 3rd and 10, like, season on the line, but also you could kind of tell yourself, hey, maybe if we don't get this, we'll kick a field goal, we'll play for overtime. And Beck throws a 17-yard strike over the middle for a first down. And then it really started to feel like, dang, they are going to punch this in. And sure enough, they did. And then again, on that scramble, like, that was just a great play, man. He looked. Nobody was open. And then he just made a quick decision, and Ole Miss was not accounting for him, which, why would you? He's mobile enough, but not somebody, I think, in that situation that you really want to dedicate a spy to. So he just made a great decision, and there was nobody there. I mean, he kind of waltzed into the end zone. He knew it as soon as he stepped up and kind of cut left toward that corner of the end zone. He kind of looked around and was like, "Oh, it's I'm in."
This is it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was.
Yeah, I was pretty fascinated when we got to halftime, and what was it? It was like 17 to 13, I think, at halftime, or 17-13 at halftime. And I think even the announcers, or maybe the halftime guys were saying it, but it felt like Miami had controlled that game in the first half, like, obviously controlled the game, and yet Ole Miss was still standing there just 4 points down. And so they needed that spark in the second half, and they got it. I mean, you had them, right? Like, you score with 3.5 minutes left, and it's all right there in front of you. Your defense just has to get a stop. But it was obvious what Miami wanted to do early. Like you said, they had a couple drives where they got some strikes. But if you look at their drive chart, they had 4 drives in this game, 13 plays or more. The first one went for a field goal. The second one was the interception where they were driving and deep in Ole Miss territory. And then you got one with a field goal, and the last one was the touchdown. The 15 plays, 75 yards, 255, and they get the touchdown to go up 31-27 on the Beck scramble. So the truth of the matter is just Ole Miss just couldn't get off the field.
Yeah.
They had – and Miami, there was a couple – Miami did have to punt a couple times, 3 and out. At some point there was a five plays, got a punt too. But still 4 drives of 13 plays or more. That's just eating up clock. You mentioned the time of possession. Ole Miss just doesn't. That means you got to be making chunk plays, right, when you're on offense. And they were able to keep that explosive offense of Ole Miss off the field just enough to get the win. So that was one thing that really stuck out to me. And like you said, I noticed that too. 51 carries for 191 yards. I mean, they were just running into the wall all night, just pounding. And that just tells you that Miami, and we said this going into the game, Miami is built like an SEC team. Mario Cristobal has built them to be the more physical team against anybody they play. And you see that along the defensive line. You saw that 191 yards on the ground. They've got, Fletcher back there, who's just a huge running back. And then they've got the offensive line who's done a great job, so far, especially in the playoffs. They've got some big hogs up there up front. So they felt like going into this game, they were going to be the more physical team. And you saw that play out on these methodical drives, trying to keep the Ole Miss offense off the field, but also knowing we feel like we are the more physical team. Even though this is an SEC team, we're bigger than them, we're stronger than them, and we feel like we're faster than them. And that's pretty much what played out. I mean, I think Ole Miss can match their speed at running back and at the skill positions, but in terms of speed anywhere else across the field, I think Miami's the faster, stronger, more physical team, and I think that's what played out in the Peach Bowl or in Arizona. No, was it the Chick-fil-A? I can't remember which bowl.
Fiesta Bowl.
Fiesta Bowl. So. What an awesome game to watch. I know that Ole Miss fans don't want to hear this, but you really have nothing to hang your head about. I mean, you had them right there, right? Like this, the team played their heart out. You got them all, a lot of them coming back. Trinidad Chambliss, sadly, it may be his last game in an Ole Miss jersey because the NCAA denied his appeal. They just made it up. He can't play anymore. We don't know why he can't play. TJ Finley can play a 7th year, but Trinidad Chambliss can't play a 6th year because of reasons. But aside from that, I know it sucks. I know you want to win a national title. I get it. That is why everybody wants to make the playoff. It's not to have, oh, great, wonderful, we made the playoff. No, it's to win a national title. But I just don't think they have anything to hang their head about. Miami gave them everything for 60 minutes, and you came up 4 points short, and you had them with 3.5 minutes to go, right? You get a touchdown, and it just doesn't go your way, and you get 40 yards in 18 seconds and have a shot at a Hail Mary right at the end, and you just don't get a pass interference call. Ball doesn't bounce your way. The whistle doesn't go your way. So for Ole Miss fans, I get it. You've never really been in this position, so you want to just taste the sweet mountaintop once. But I think Pete Golding has you in a good position to potentially get back here close to it in the next couple of years. So all may not be lost, and in my opinion, nothing to hang your head about.
No, definitely nothing to hang your head about. Again, we don't need to belabor the point. We can kind of move on here, but especially given the circumstances. And I want to give a shout out to, we've been shouting him out each week, but Golding did a heck of a job doing what he did given the circumstances he was handed by Kiffin. And he even said, you brought up the pass interference that was a pass interference that they didn't call at the end of the game. And, again, to give this guy credit, he's like, I'm trying to pull up his exact quote, but yeah, he just goes, those situations, it's tough to call them. I mean, yeah, there was contact, but it happens a lot. That's not why we lost the game. We had opportunities late, so rightfully so. He's not blaming the refs. He's taken ownership, and yeah, just there's nothing to hang your head about after that one. I mean, Miami's shown to be a great team. going on the road, beating A&M and Kyle Field, beating Ohio State, and then, beating Ole Miss in that game. And of those 3 wins that Miami's had in the college football playoff, Ole Miss was the closest, right? 4-point deficit at the end of the game, and they were up in the fourth quarter. Neither A&M nor I guess A&M was tied in the fourth, but Ohio State was certainly not. They brought it to within 3, and then Miami punched it in. So, you're up in the fourth quarter on a team that has taken out 2 of the top teams in the country to that point. And like I said, you just got beat. It was a great drive. Carson Beck marched his team down the field, as a 7th-year quarterback is apt to do at times.
Yeah, that's the truth. I think Ole Miss did show in that game that they were one of the top 4 teams in the country. Like, I don't think there's any doubt about that, right? Like, after watching what they did, pushing Miami to the brink, and getting right on the verge of a national title berth, and it just doesn't go your way, like we said. Two or three shout outs I want to give to the Ole Miss defense, because I know they gave up 31 points and they gave up some methodical drives and everything, but there were a couple guys who were flying around the field. Suntory Perkins is an absolute baller. He had 7 tackles. He had 3 solo, and he had 1.5 sacks and 1.5 tackles for loss. And then you had Will Eccles along the defensive line, who played out of his mind as well. 6 tackles, had a half a sack and a half of a tackle for loss there, I think, with Suntory. So those guys played awesome. It was so much fun to watch them, not only in this game, but this year. And I think we're going to get both of them back. Am I crazy? Is somebody graduating? I can't remember. Yeah, Suntory should be back. I haven't seen him declare.
Yeah, I think he could declare, but I don't think he's out of eligibility. So unless he declares, I think he could be back.
And I haven't seen him declare. So I think we're going to see him next year. And then Will Eccles is a sophomore, so he'll be back next year as well. And I haven't seen him enter the portal. So be good to have those guys back for the Rebels. They were so much fun to watch this year, and especially in this game. All right, let's move on. Let's do our national title preview before we get into a little bit of transfer portal talk. There's, the transfer portal is closing. I think, is it on Friday, the 16th?
I believe so. It's just a 2-week period now.
Right, except for players who play in the national title game. They are, I think, given a five-day extension, but portal closes in 2 days, but a ton of movement still going on. So we'll get into all that in just a minute. But let's talk national title first. Team we just talked about, Miami, who got the win over Ole Miss, and then we got number 1 Indiana, who I think I wrote this in Monday's newsletter, or maybe it was Friday's, I can't remember. Must have been Fridays. That Indiana is basically like the Burt Kreischer of college football right now. They are the machine. Kurt Signetti is the machine. Indiana is the machine. If you've never seen that bit by Burt Kreischer, go check it out. Just search the machine on YouTube. I'm sure you'll find it. But anyway, this is going to be a fun one. I want a good game. I want a great game. I think Miami's defense probably has the best chance of anybody to really hang tough with Indiana and maybe not force them into mistakes, but at least kind of slow this offense down. But this offense is on a tear for Indiana, and the way that I've seen them play in the last month, I don't know if anybody stops them. I mean, what they're doing is just unbelievable, as we led the show with. So give me some of your keys to this game. What are you looking for? Does Miami have a chance?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in our show rundown here. I even just kind of put exactly what you said. Just how can you pick against Indiana here? Just how? What have they seen? Now, I will say, if you're picking the game straight up, it feels hard to pick against them. 8.5 is a big point spread. So if you're going against the spread, that would, I could totally see an argument on that side of things that Miami can keep it close. I think in this game, for me, the keys, the thing to watch for Miami to keep this close or potentially win. I would not rule that out. I'm, as you can probably tell, definitely leaning Indiana, but I was leaning A&M. I was leaning Ohio State, and I picked Ole Miss last week. So Miami has made me eat crow 3 times. And so by no means do I want, do I want to make it sound like they don't have a chance? Because they've earned the right to be here, and they have the talent and the athletes to go toe-to-toe with anybody for 60 minutes. But I think if you're looking at, what Indiana has done this entire season, as we've talked about, on the margins, unfortunately, that's not where Miami is best, at least in terms of penalties, right? So Miami really struggled in that Ole Miss game with some penalties. They had 10 for like 97 yards. On the season, they're 97th in penalties per game, where Indiana's number 3. So obviously Miami has to play clean. They cannot hurt themselves. Obviously, they can't turn the ball over. Indiana feasts on that, and you're going to be put in positions to turn the ball over. So, again, we need Miami needs a really, really good performance from Beck. And then I think you have to hope, and it's possible because we saw him do it against A&M and Ohio State. Ole Miss actually blocked them very well in the passing game. Again, couldn't really run the ball outside of that 73-yard run from Lacey, but Miami only had 1 sack in that game. But I think, in this game, for Miami to keep it close, Bain and Mesidor have got to get after Mendoza. And it's possible for them to do that, right? Looking at this, sacks allowed, Indiana's 34th in the country, while Miami's 9th. So offensive line-wise, I think Miami has a slight edge, especially in pass pro, and that's possibly something that they could take advantage of. And I think they have to do it because we've seen in the last couple games, or in any of the games Indiana's played this year, if you're not getting pressure on Mendoza, as we just talked about, they're going to execute. He's going to put the ball on the money. His guy is going to be exactly where he expects him to be, and you just can't cover them all. So you have got to speed him up, in the pocket to slow this offense down. Really, for me, that's the key on the Miami side. I think offensively, Miami's going to struggle to score here. So you're going to have to kind of hope it's similar to maybe the A&M Ohio State game, because Indiana's defense is just so dang good. We'll see. Miami rushing the football has been really, really good, obviously, against stout defenses, A&M, Ohio State, and now Ole Miss. So maybe they can find a little more breathing room than certainly than Alabama did. We knew they weren't going to run the ball. But Oregon could not run the ball, and the game script kind of got away from Oregon too. They couldn't really attempt it. Yeah. So I kind of think, Miami, again, offensively, it's sort of the same blueprint, and that's run the ball a lot to keep Mendoza off the field, and then pick your spots. Malachi Toney is a guy that can blow up a game no matter who the opponent is. I don't care how good Indiana's defense is. He's shown that over and over again, that he can make big plays. So you really just got to pick your spots where you're going to try to, go downfield or hit an explosive. And then otherwise, I think you just keep pounding the rock and hitting those screens near the line of scrimmage, and then hope on the other side that your defense is giving Mendoza trouble, flustering him, and holding Indiana, under 17, 20 points. Because I think if it gets into the 20s, Miami's in trouble.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. That was you mentioned the screens for Miami. That's something I'm worried about, because I think Indiana – what does Indiana like to do? I mean, this is what all great defenses do, what all great defensive coordinators do. But Indiana, being one of the best defenses in the country this year, they take away what you're best at and say, okay, beat us somewhere else. So that's what I'm looking for. Thinking about this game, it's like, okay, Miami runs the ball very well, and what do they like to do after that? They like to get out in space, east to west, and go, get a screen to Malachi Toney and some of their other playmakers on the outside. So I think Indiana is going to take that away and make Beck try to throw the ball downfield, try to throw some posts, try to throw some stuff over the middle, and see if he can beat him that way. And that is typically when Beck gets in trouble and when he starts throwing interceptions. So that is what I'm betting that the Indiana defense is going to try and do. And turnover margin, Indiana, number 2 in the country. They don't turn the ball over, and they get turnovers. And Beck has protected the ball pretty well throughout the playoffs. we've mentioned in a couple of these games going into it, right? Carson Beck, like, is he going to be able to protect the ball? He had 10 interceptions, I think, in the regular season. Miami does get turnovers on defense, right? They're still number 10 in turnover margin in the country. But
Correct.
we know Indiana does not turn the ball over. So I don't expect any turnovers from Indiana, whereas Miami, that could become an issue, especially with the game plan that I'm laying out here for what Indiana is going to try and do. So I'd be interested in watching that. Malachi Toney also had a little bit of fumble issues here in the college football playoffs. So they're going to be ripping the ball when the ball gets to him. But yeah, I think you're right. You have to establish the run early if you're Miami and start having some of these methodical drives like you were able to have against Ole Miss. Another thing that if I'm Mario Cristobal, if I'm Miami, I'm talking to Keontae Scott and I'm saying, take some chances. Yeah. Take some chances, brother. What happened in Ohio State when you jumped that route and you saw it coming and we were watching film all week and you knew that key, right, when Julian Sayin does this or whatever it was, he knew that was coming. So I know they're watching film of Indiana. I doubt that Fernando Mendoza tips anything like, a young quarterback and Julian Sayin does. But I'm telling Keontae Scott, brother, take some chances because this team is very good, very efficient. If we can steal an interception, get a fumble recovery, get lucky, get a pick six, something like that, like they did against Ohio State, that gives us a much better shot to win this game. So, but even still, we've talked a lot about Miami. I just look at everything that Indiana does, what they have been doing, and they look like a machine. I mean, just look at their numbers. Look at what they did against Alabama. Look at what they just did against Oregon. And I don't know how you could pick against them. The 8.5 spread, you were saying the 8.5 spread's a lot. Is it? I don't know if it is because every spread that they have that's around 8.5, they're beating teams by 20, 30. Like, I don't know if it's that big at all. Yeah, Miami looks like a really good team, but so did Oregon. Alabama beat Oklahoma to get to that game to play Indiana, and they absolutely kicked the snot out of the Tide. So I don't know how you pick against Indiana in this game. And let's boil it down to what it comes down to often. In crunch time, which quarterback do you trust? Carson Beck has played very, very well throughout the college football playoff. He played clutch, like you mentioned, against Ole Miss. I'm not taking that away from him. But if there's one quarterback that I trust in this game, it's Fernando Mendoza. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think both of us just now, we've spoken a lot about what Miami needs to do to win this ball game. And it's a pretty good list of things they need to do, and on the flip side with Indiana, it just feels like a much smaller list because there's just no holes, right? Again, you could say, right. So the key for Miami is we'll get pressure on Mendoza. Okay. So for Indiana, right. Hey, just Mendoza's not nearly as mobile as Chambliss, but especially if Indiana can run the ball a little bit, there's ways to, if they can run the ball and so they're not in 3rd and long, you can sort of neutralize the pass rush that way. Another way is just a little bit of quick game, right? Just get the ball out quick. And you brought it up. Like, man, there's nobody in the country, obviously he won the Heisman Trophy, who I would trust more going up against a pass rush like this, right? I mean, gosh, I keep bringing this up, and I think last week I was somehow comparing Carson Beck to Brady, and now I'm going to do Mendoza. But, you remember those games so many times in the playoffs, the time it would take Brady to get the ball out, it would be like 2.5 seconds, right? And it's just like, hey, dude, nobody's getting home. Even Myles Garrett, who just broke the sack record, he's not getting home if you're getting the ball out that quick. So I think for Indiana, I assume that's what they're going to try to do is get the ball out quick. And again, nobody executes their game plan better than Indiana. There's no better quarterback in the country to put the ball in the money when you need him to than Mendoza. So I got to think they're going to be able to, again, barring game script going haywire and them, either having to come back or them just being constantly stuck in 3rd and long, I think they're going to be in a good position to handle that pass rush, even if it might be a slight mismatch, especially because we just brought it up. Indiana is number one in the country in third down conversion percentage. And part of the reason they're number one is because their average down and distance, I think, is the lowest in the country as well. So, it all builds on itself, right? It's not like they're great at converting 3rd and 9. Nobody is. But if they're sitting there at 3rd and 3, yeah, they're darn good at converting that. And so if they can just keep doing what they've done for 16 games, then yeah, I absolutely trust them to get this done. And then, you brought up the turnover thing. That certainly worries me about Miami. And again, so does the penalties, because that is one thing that, despite the fact that they've been winning, still plagues them. And you can't give Indiana an inch. And I struggle with that dynamic in this game for the Hurricanes, because that's just, we've seen it with so many teams. That's just a hard habit to break, right? Who knows what it is, but it's like, man, especially at this point in the season, it's like, dude, you kind of are what you are. You're 97th in penalties per game. You're not disciplined in certain ways for whatever reason. I don't know what it is. A good example. Hopefully this won't happen. I doubt it, because it is the national championship, and you would think these guys would be aware of this. But that late in the game, I can't remember if it was on the go-ahead touchdown drive for Ole Miss or the one they scored before, but that late hit on the running back when they hand it off to Lacey and he goes down, and then like 3 seconds later, that guy comes in there and just plows into him when Lacey's on the ground. It's just like, what are we doing? And Indiana's not going to do that. And nope. that type of stuff worries me about Miami. And that's another thing, not to get, this is about one game, and certainly they could put it together for 60 minutes, but that is something that has plagued the Miami program for decades.
Yep.
And Cristobal, for as good of a job as he has done, as evidenced by the fact that he has them in the national title and they won 10 games last year as well, he's done a phenomenal job. They have always struggled with penalties, even under Cristobal. So those kind of dynamics, the penalties, the turnovers, the margins feel very, very slim for Miami, as we said, right? There's a lot that they need to do and that needs to go right for them to potentially win this game. And for Indiana, it kind of just feels like just business as usual, right? Like, you don't really need to do anything that you haven't done for 16 weeks. Just keep doing what you've done. And yeah, man, you should probably walk out of here with the natty.
Yeah. I think that's right. The one thing I was going to say on it, to cap us off is, you look at the things that Miami does well, or any team that Indiana has played, right? And then you watch the game and you look at the box score after the game, and you're like, they just flattened this team in the specific stat category that going into this game, you were like, oh my, they actually have a shot here. Right? Oh, well, if their run defense can stop Indiana, oh, well, they've got a couple good cornerbacks. Maybe they'll be able to stop Fernando Mendoza and Omar Cooper Jr. in this passing attack. They have a good rushing, whatever it is, right? Whatever the stat is, Indiana seems to exploit it. It does not matter. They don't care. They come right at you, and they beat you even at your game, at what you're good at. So, the reason I'm bringing this up is we talked about it earlier against Oregon. 4.6 yards per carry, almost 5 yards a carry is what Indiana averaged against Oregon, a top 6 defense in the country. Yep. A very good run defense. Miami, what does Miami do very well? Miami has a very good run defense. They don't give up. They gave up the crazy 70-yard run to Lacey, and then basically nothing else for the rest of the night against Ole Miss. They gave up nothing to Texas A&M in that game. They gave up not a lot of rushing yards to Ohio State. Very good rushing defense. I still expect Indiana to have over 100 yards in this game. I expect them to have 4.5 yards a carry, even against the Miami defense, who has been shutting down big running backs like Kawan Lacey and like Le'Veon Moss for Texas A&M, or Reuben Owens, right? Yeah. So those are the things that make me just sit back and say, I don't know how you pick against Indiana. Indiana is beating teams at their own game and crushing them at their own game. So I don't know how you can pick against them in this one. So I have not made my pick yet. I don't know who I'm going to pick. Wink, wink. I think it's pretty obvious who I'm picking from what I said here, but we will make our picks tomorrow night. Hammer will not be on tomorrow night. He can't make it. It has a conflict, but I will be on tomorrow night on SEC After Dark. So that is where we typically make our picks. If you're new to Biscuits and SEC, check us out tomorrow night on SEC After Dark. We will be on at 9 Eastern, 8 Central, along with the whole crew, the whole gang, which will be a lot of fun. So, all right, before we get out of here, we're going to have pretty close to a tight show. I don't think we're going to get out of here in an hour, but maybe an hour 10. So before we get to our final two segments of the show, which two of our favorite segments always, the Biscuit of the Week and our Must Champ Coach of the Week, which soon to be renamed, but not yet. Okay, let's talk transfer portal because there's a lot going on in the transfer portal. Some big takeaways from recent movement. Just kind of want to hear your thoughts. Who's been doing well, etc. Just quickly, two things to kick us off. Some big names that came off the board here in the last couple of days, at least off the top of my head. Cam Coleman commits to Texas. Huge for Texas to get that one. It's been kind of a weird exodus out of Austin. A little bit surprising at multiple positions, but Sark is doing a pretty good job backfilling. I think they've got the second-rated portal class in the SEC right now. Cam Coleman obviously boosted that number like crazy. Number one wide receiver, should have been the number one player in the portal just for his pure talent. Texas gets him. Lane Kiffin finally gets his quarterback, gets two quarterbacks actually. He rekindled and repaired the relationship with Sam Levitt after flirting with DeMond Williams while Sam Levitt was at the basketball game with Lane Kiffin. So that relationship gets repaired. Sam Levitt commits to LSU. And then he also gets two other quarterbacks, actually. He got a quarterback from Elon, and then he also got a quarterback from USC, former Texas A&M commit out of high school, Husan Longstreet. Ended up at USC. He flipped to USC late in the cycle, was with Lincoln Riley for 1 year, went into the portal, and then bam, he was at LSU. So you got your quarterback of the future in Hassan Longstreet, and then you got your quarterback of right now in Sam Levitt for the LSU Tigers. And the only one I know there's more that I'm missing, but we can get into some others. But a big get for Mike Elko was he missed out on Cam Coleman, but he gets Isaiah Horton from Alabama, who led the team in touchdowns this year. He's a big target, 6'4", something A&M was missing this year, something we talked about in the preseason. This is a great receiving core, a lot more talent than A&M has had at the receiver position in a long time, but there's not a lot of size on the outside. Everybody's like 6 foot and under, which did come back to bite them a little bit at times. So get Isaiah Horton, 6'4", big target, big receiver. He and Marcel Reed played 7-on-7 together back in the day. So there is a connection there. So anyway, those are some of the big names that came off the board. Give me some of your thoughts, some big names that you've been thinking of or maybe that I missed, and then some teams that are doing well, some things that have stuck out to you.
Yeah, so you covered a good amount there with some of the bigger names coming off the board. I thought a few other interesting ones. One to bring up was Hollywood Smothers, who we recently praised Alabama for getting. Well, he has since flipped his commitment to Texas. So that's the running back out of NC State, who, again, I was high on. I think he had a good year. And similarly, Texas needed help there, right? We mentioned Cam Coleman coming in because Texas had multiple starters leave in Livingstone and DeAndre Moore. So in terms of any sort of returning production, it was just Wingo. So they get Coleman to bolster the receiving core. And that's, I mean, Wingo and Coleman is pretty deadly. Wingo had a sort of up and down year, but sort of the entire Texas offense, and especially late in the year, he was kind of turning it on. And I think there's still no doubt, talent-wise, Wingo can go. So maybe another year in the system for him, and Arch will pay dividends. Also probably having a big target and a true number one X receiver like Coleman opposite Wingo would open some things up for him. But Hollywood Smothers a good pickup in the backfield for Texas. They also got Raleek Brown from Arizona State, who was rated as a 4-star in the portal. They picked up a 4-star linebacker commit, Rasheem Biles from Pittsburgh. Again, Texas had multiple backers go in the portal and is losing Anthony Hill to the draft. So they needed some help there, and they got it. Let's see. I want to touch on Kentucky, but before I do, I'll just kind of list a couple other big ones. Deuce Knight goes to Ole Miss. So I guess, presumably, Deuce Knight goes to Ole Miss. So does Walker Howard, which is kind of funny because he was previously at Ole Miss. And then he was at LSU, and then he was at, I think, Louisiana, and now he's back at Ole Miss. So he was still rated as a 4-star in the portal. So barring any change in the Trinidad Chambliss waiver saga, it'll be a Walker Howard Deuce Knight battle in Oxford, which will be very interesting to see. I think they're in a good spot. Deuce Knight didn't get really any run except for the game against Mercer for Auburn, but 5-star, super talented. And then Walker Howard, sort of a journeyman. I don't really know what, he can do, but in terms of if Knight isn't ready, a 1-year stopgap, he's probably a pretty good option. Mizzou lands Austin Simmons. So, of course, the Ole Miss quarterback who started the year as the starter was very highly thought of by many people, including Lane Kiffin. But obviously, Trinidad Chambliss sort of just snatched that job away from him after he had an early season injury. I think that's probably a good pickup for Mizzou, probably good for both parties. It seems like Austin Simmons handled himself well at Ole Miss and is very talented. And Mizzou has been a great destination for quarterbacks. I mean, even Prbula, I don't really know why he entered the portal. Maybe because this was coming down the pike and Drink wanted more. But Prbula had a pretty good year for them. Brady Cook, God bless him, was a heck of a competitor, but didn't look like he had a lot of talent, and he won a lot of ball games for them. So I think it's a good move by Simmons to go to that program that seems like they know what they're doing. And then in terms of just overall portal picture, LSU is the number 1 class, so the portal king is back in Baton Rouge. Texas is sitting there at number 2. Important to note here, for Texas in particular, they only have 13 commitments, and they're still up there at number 2. So that just means they're taking a lot of high-quality guys. Ole Miss is at 28, LSU is at 28 for reference. So they've over doubled, Texas in commitments, but that's the 1-2. Oklahoma State is 3rd with 49 commitments. Penn State 4th, 35 commitments. A lot of volume there. New coaches, no surprise. And then we got 3 SEC teams back to back to back. Ole Miss is at 5th with only 15 commitments. So Golding doing a very good job of bringing in talented guys
and retaining talent. So
good point. Very good point. A&M is 7th with 18 commits. So similarly, Elko doing a good job of bringing in, highly thought of prospects, not just a lot of volume. But then Kentucky's sitting there at number 6. And man, I got to give Will Stein some credit here, because who saw this coming? Honestly, number 6 in the portal. They've got 26 commits, so they're definitely taking a lot of guys. But again, new coach, not surprising. They had obviously an exodus of their own when Stoops got fired, but that's a heck of a portal class. And a couple guys, I don't know who these guys are, other than Lance Hurd, but they brought in 3 4-star offensive linemen in the portal. So they are really bolstering the trenches, which we've talked a lot about, how it's difficult to rebuild your offensive line, especially in the portal. That could be changing, because I feel like we've seen a lot more starters and bigger name guys go in this year. But that's big for Kentucky to bring those guys in and hopefully, kind of revamp that offensive line that when they were cooking under Mark Stoops in the earlier part of his tenure, kind of the middle of his tenure, they had really good offensive lines. And so obviously Stein doing a good job to bring that back to Lexington. And then he also brought in a quarterback because Cutter Boley, RIP, I enjoyed watching him. He's now at Arizona State. But they brought in Kenny Minchie, the backup at Notre Dame, who was rated as a 4-star.
Took him from Nebraska.
Correct. Took him from Nebraska. He entered the portal from Notre Dame, committed to Nebraska, and then Will Stein said, "Not so fast, my friend," and scooped him up. I don't think he played at all this year, really. I mean, maybe some mop-up duty in some of those blowouts, but at the same time, I think they were kind of running CJ Carr out there a lot because they needed style points, even though that didn't end up mattering for them. Sorry, Notre Dame fans, but
not sorry.
All we really have to go on is, I think he was a 4-star coming out of high school. He's a 4-star in the portal, so still highly thought of. And if you go back to last August, this was a long quarterback battle. CJ Carr, I think, barely beat him out. Marcus Freeman said multiple times that this was a really, really tough decision. And so not a whole lot of game experience, but given how CJ Carr played this year, that's obviously a good sign that Minchie was right there with him, because there's a heck of a lot of teams that would take what CJ Carr did this year in a heartbeat. So if Minchie can do, 80% of that, I think Kentucky's in a very good place at quarterback. So shout out to Will Stein and the Wildcats for making some noise. I don't think anybody had Kentucky as, a top 6 class on their bingo card when Mark Stoops got fired. So good stuff.
Well, and plus, he has been coaching Oregon through the playoffs. So his staff is putting in work, and he has done a great job. Maybe that's why Oregon didn't score anything against Indiana.
Yeah, right. That's why they threw a pick 6 on the first play. Indiana, we've seen this play 4 times.
Maybe you
don't have anything new for us.
Yeah, Oregon fans, I think, probably have no love lost at this point for Will Stein, but he's doing a great job at his new job in the portal. I don't think anybody had them as a top 6 portal class, but they've been putting in work. Getting Lance Hurd is huge. That guy's he was all SEC last year. The other 2 that I wanted to mention that they also got 2 former 5-stars from Texas. They got CJ Baxter, the running back, who never got a ton of time at Texas, but former 5-star. He was a 3-star in the portal now, so he's lost a little bit of shine, but still a high ceiling. So maybe he'll shine at Kentucky behind this big offensive line that Will Stein is rebuilding. And the other one that they got is former 5-star linebacker, 4-star in the portal, Texas linebacker Elijah Barnes. So Will Stein doing a great job at Kentucky so far, at least in the portal. The other one I want to mention that has also done a pretty good job, kind of, I would say quietly, but if you're following it, that he's been doing a pretty dadgum good job. Shane Beamer at South Carolina. Now, it's not showing up with really flashy numbers like they've got the number 2 portal class in the SEC or whatever, top 10. But much like Pete Golding, doing a very, very good job at retaining talent. And then backfilling with some good pieces through the portal. He got his top 3 guys back, right? And he got Lenora Sellers back. He got Dylan Stewart back. And there was one other one he got back who I'm forgetting. They're one of their top players. The one that he did lose that was unfortunate was Ventrevious Jacobs, the wide receiver who went in the portal, and he's going to Miami. He flashed a couple times this year. So it would have been nice to have him back as a big target for Lenora Sellers. But in terms of talent retention, and so far, even though, again, not super flashy, but he's gotten a few good pieces in the portal, Shane Beamer doing a pretty good job there in Columbia. We'll see if that translates. He's got to have a good year this year. South Carolina fans aren't going to tolerate another 4-8 season or something like that, right? We can't fall apart, especially when you have Lenora Sellers, the best quarterback that South Carolina has seen in a long, long time, probably since Connor Shaw, I would say. And ceiling-wise, Lenora Sellers has the highest ceiling of anybody we've seen at quarterback for South Carolina in a long, long, long time. So, got to have a good year. So far, he's putting the pieces together and the foundation together for the Gamecocks to have a good year next year. So, all right, anything else you want to mention on the portal, or should we move on?
No, let's move on. Let's close her out with our Muschamp Coach of the Week and Biscuit of the Week.
Okay, let's do it. All right, I put these together, so I will let you be the peanut gallery and comment on them. But Muschamp Coach of the Week here. We do this every single week. If you're new here to Biscuits and SEC, we got over 250 of you guys watching us tonight. Really appreciate every single one of you guys tuning in. We do this every Wednesday at 7 Eastern, 6 Central. We'll be doing it throughout the offseason too. We'll get into some other sports. We'll talk a little bit of basketball. We haven't really touched on basketball in this or in the newsletter, but promise we'll get to it. It's coming. Once football's over, we get to basketball. College baseball's coming up. We absolutely love college baseball here. We'll talk that as well. Muschamp Coach of the Week, something we do every week. We love Coach Muschamp. We did until he became the Texas defensive coordinator. As you can see, look, I'm an Aggie. Hank's an Aggie. Hammer and I graduated from Texas A&M. We try to be unbiased on this show. We do our best. But sometimes, at the end of the day, we're going to have to change the name of this thing because Coach Muschamp, while we love him, even though he's a Texas defensive coordinator now, he was kind of not active for a while. He was an assistant in the background for Georgia. But we love him for his passion for the game. He's punching whiteboards, got the blood running down his face. He's always in ref's face. Got a good quip for the media all the time. So we like to name a Muschamp Coach of the Week every week for the coach that best exemplifies that passion for college football and that passion for the game. So this week, it was the coach. There's not a lot going on right now, right? It's press conferences, and really, who would we – it would either be Signetti or it would be Mario Cristobal. And I'm sure they had some good quotes this week, but I went a little bit outside of our typical lane, and it was the coach from Prairie View A&M. His name's escaping me. I'll have it up on the screen in a second. But he had a great quote about recruiting in the new NIL and portal era. So here it is.
Who the agents can be. We talked to so many random people that just started being an agent yesterday. And maybe they're the uncle to the single mom, who is my worst nightmare in recruiting. An uncle to the single mom that thought he could play and didn't get a chance because he had to go to work is my worst nightmare. Because he's always talking about something that don't matter. But I think kids need to really rely on their high school coaches or their coaches where they are.
That quote had me cracking up. The uncle to the single mom is my worst nightmare because he's always talking about something that doesn't matter, and he thought he could play, but he didn't get his chance because he had to go to work.
Yeah, he's basically calling out the real life Uncle Ricos out there who are trying to, relive their glory days, and they're on the phone with coach, and they're like, "Man, hey, if my coach would have put me in back in '88, we'd have taken state." And
hey,
Tremaine Jackson from Prairie View is like, "Man, I don't care."
I do not care. Yeah, I'm trying to recruit your nephew, my man, and I don't care. Oh, well, my nephew, my nephew's going to the league, and we're gonna help him get to the league. And what can you offer my nephew? I take control of all his business operations.
Yeah,
goodness. I'm not dealing with you, man. Like, who are you? I don't care.
Yeah, gosh, that is a good quote. Yeah, just became agents yesterday.
Yeah. So that was a good one. Tremaine Jackson, Prairie View A&M head coach, Muschamp Coach of the Week. We'll be sure to get your certificate and your trophy in the mail to you within the next 5 years. I'm sure that one will be displayed behind him in his cabinet, in his trophy case for a long time to come. All right. Biscuit of the Week. We also do this one every single week. If you would like to be featured, send us a DM, shoot it to us on at Biscuits and SEC, any of the platforms. You can show us your favorite diner, take a picture from your homemade biscuits that you've done. We have featured many on this show from folks who watch Biscuits and SEC Live and who subscribe to the newsletter. Our main man, Rick Wilmarth, Captain Biscuit, often featured. So if you would like to be featured, send us a DM, or you can also shoot us an email, contact@biscuitsandsec.com. This week's Biscuit of the Week comes from when I was home over the Christmas break, Charlottesville, Virginia, where our parents live. You can see right there, Sweet Montana, my mom's dog, in the background. Very curious as to what these biscuits are all about. She is the top beggar in the household, always begging for food, but there she is begging for those biscuits. Hammer and Boss Man are always begging for biscuits too, man. Any biscuit we can find, we like to give it a try. I could not help it. I went for lunch one day and I was like, I'm going to have these tomorrow. So I saw these biscuits. They were on the hot plate. They make them fresh biscuits every single day at the market in Charlottesville, Virginia. There are a couple of these around town, so it depends on what part of town you're in, but they all kind of look like that one at the bottom picture. Kind of has that colonial look to it. Very Virginia, very Charlottesville. At the top there, that was one that I got for our youngest brother, who may be seen on this show down the road. We'll have to see. Chuck Biscuit. That is a steak and egg biscuit from the market. It was pretty dadgum good. He really enjoyed it. The one on the right is the one I got. Whenever I'm home, I really like to try or find some country ham, some country Virginia salted ham, and they had a Virginia country salted ham biscuit with an egg on it. So those biscuits were awesome. Shout out to the market in Charlottesville, Virginia. When I was younger, quick aside here, I worked for a moving company called Student Moving Services, and there were markets on the way to where we would go to work. Their offices were close by, and on the way was a market. And so I would often stop in at the market and get a biscuit, and they were fantastic and awesome sandwiches as well. By the way, if you're ever in Charlottesville, Virginia, their biscuits are fantastic, but they're well known for their lunch counter. They've got an awesome, just tons of awesome sandwiches that are all fresh, all very well made, all good stuff.
Yeah, that looks great. I haven't been to the market in a long time. Next time I'm back home, that might require a stop, because that's a good spot, and it's been a staple up there for a long time, and I've been there for quite a while. Another thing I could think, we got to send Chuck Biscuit over to the Brownsville market. That's another yes. Charlottesville, or more like Crozet, a little bit outside of town staple, but it's it's a gas station, and they sell biscuits, cheeseburgers, fried chicken. So you're in a good place when your gas stations have just fried chicken. You can walk in and pull out with some biscuits. So yeah, a lot of good biscuits in and around Charlottesville.
That's the truth. And yeah, all of our friends in the SEC footprint know, as you said, gas station, if it's got good food, man, that's a Southern thing. So, and Virginia's still in the South. I know people like to say it's not, but hey, fight me. Virginia's in the South. It's got a lot of good gas station food, a lot of good biscuits, sandwiches, all that. The market.
Country ham, come on.
Country ham. Brownsville market, like you said, Brownsville market is fantastic. So anyway, that is your biscuit of the week from the market in Charlottesville, Virginia. Want to say thank you to all of you again for joining us. 263 of you right now tuning in. Again, we do this every single week. Biscuits and SEC Live comes to you live every Wednesday night at 7 Eastern, 6 Central. So be sure to tune in to us next week. Follow us on social media at Biscuits and SEC across all platforms. Sign up for the newsletter as well, biscuitsandsec.com/newsletter. You can go there and sign up right now for free. The Morning Biscuits newsletter comes to you on Mondays and Fridays during the season, Wednesdays during the off season, which we are about to switch over to our off season schedule. Also, everything else, check it out across the After Dark network. You got Tuesdays in the morning typically is when this comes out. Off season After Dark, that is with our good friend Mike Huseman. He does a great job covering the SEC, G5, ACC. He has guests on all the time, talking ball. The guy knows what he's talking about. Also writes for Mike Farrell Sports. So be sure to check out Off Season After Dark. You got SEC After Dark, which I'll be on tomorrow to make our national championship picks and be able to talk a little bit more about what's going on with the national championship and what we're looking forward to with the entire crew. Bama After Dark is Jake Thomas. He does a great job breaking down everything that has to do with the Crimson Tide. Go follow him, Bama After Dark 2. Excuse me. And then the Regular Guys Pod. They are on a little bit of an irregular cadence right now, but that is Corey Burton of Locked On Vandy and also Israel Troop. So they do a good job talking ball and talking a little bit of pop culture and everything else going on when they get a chance. So be sure to check them out and follow them, Regular Guys Pod, on Twitter for when their next show will be. As always, we are brought to you guys by the Steer Agency. Thank you to those guys for sponsoring the show, and thank you again to all of you for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you guys next week, next Wednesday. We will recap the national title game. Enjoy the national title game. I'll see you tomorrow night for SEC After Dark. For Hammer, I'm Boss Man. We will see you guys next week.
Appreciate y'all.